Okay, this is my favorite part. When we see people start to pop up. Hi, Christy. Oh, yay. Especially when we see people that we know.
And as I sit here and like start creeping through all the names.
I know. This is the best part. This is the best part. Well, welcome everybody to and happy holidays, right? To the four conversations to have with every buyer in a shift. I'm MAPS coach Sarah Detmore, and I'm here with the amazing MAPS coach Ashley Miller, and we're excited to be here today with all of you. We know that there are a million other things that you could be doing today. Ash and I were kind of talking about how we're in this weird time continuum of not really knowing who we are or where we're supposed to be or what day it is. So we're really grateful that you guys are all here with us today and made the choice to invest in yourself and your business with this holiday call. So we got a lot of content for the next hour, and Ashley and I could talk about this kind of stuff until we're blue in the face. So let's go ahead and get started, and we're going to do some quick introductions. So Ashley, why don't you tell us who you are and where you're from?
Hello, everybody. I am Senior Mastery Coach Ashley Miller. I am based out of Central Illinois, where it is currently like frigid cold right now. Hence why me and my space heater are all snuggled in down here. So I work primarily with agents and teams, and my specialty really lies in coaching to teams, agents within teams, and profit and loss.
Awesome. And Ashley and I are good friends. I've known her for several years now. Ashley, how long have you been a MAPS coach, by the way?
So I started with MAPS coaching in 2018, which feels like yesterday and also feels like a lifetime ago at the same time. So yeah, I've been doing this for a hot minute.
Definitely. And I'm so excited to partner with you on this call. Again, guys, my name is MAPS coach Sarah Detmore. I have been with MAPS now since 2019. I coach agents. That's why I said hi to Christy first on the call. She and I get to talk on a Zoom call every other week. She's one of my wonderful coaching partners. And I've been with MAPS since 2019. I primarily coach agents on teams. I love working with buyer agents, and I'm a former buyer agent on a mega team here in Houston, Texas. Ashley said it's frigid cold in her area right now. Guys, it's like 75 and sunny here in Houston, Texas. So we can't beat it. Kim's like, what are you guys doing down there, right? But yes, it's sunny. My kids can finally play outside, which is a great, great day for us. But aside from that, guys, we're here to really talk through four really impactful conversations we should be having with every buyer in a shifting market, and quite frankly, in any market. Ashley, I think that you'd agree with that. So I have a question for you guys to kick things off. How many of you have a buyer in your world right now who you're like, gosh, they say they want to buy, they're acting like they want to buy, but they're just not buying a house? Raise your hand. Yeah, Cam, you're not alone. Austin, you're not alone. Taylor, I saw a hand up over there, right? Guys, this happens to all of us. We have buyers that are giving us all the signals where they're acting like they want to buy a house, and they're not following through on what they say they want to do. So we're hopeful that these four conversations that we're going to talk through today. Hi, Joe. There's Joe. We're hopeful that these four conversations we're going to take you guys through today are going to be conversations you can get into action with your buyers right now that will cause them to move forward in your business. How many of you would like to put a buyer under contract this week? Yeah, Christy, I know you would, sister. Okay. Fawn, I saw a hand up over there. So before we get into all, and I see a lot of hands raised. I love the virtual hands, guys. Just know if you have questions, Ashley and I are going to save the last probably 10, 15 minutes of our time together today for Q&A, or feel free to drop a question in the chat box and we can kind of comb through those as well. Okay. But if you're virtual raising your hand just because you want to say yes to whatever question we're asking, I love that as well. So I'm going to advance the slide because I'm in charge of that today. So guys, to get started here, before we get into these conversations, we want to hear from you. Aside from what's on the screen right now, when you think of a buyer agent or even yourself as a buyer agent, what would you say are the 3 to 5 aspects of a buyer agent's job description? Go ahead and drop those in the chat box.
This is always fun. I love seeing what all we can. What's the 5 things, guys, that are part of a buyer agent job description?
Yeah, so we've got lead generate and lead follow up. That's a primary, part of our job description. We meet with prospective buyers. I love that Austin said uncover motivation. Kim says we're solving problems. We're educating, says Christy. Practice scripts, Brenda, that's right. We want to meet prospective buyers for a buyer consultation. Some of us call it a strategy session, right? You may have heard of that as well. I love that Tyler said help people make decisions. You're getting ahead of the game here, Tyler, slow down. We show homes, we negotiate and write contracts, guys. Those are all really the tactical things that we do as buyer agents. Aside from all the great things you guys are putting in the chat as well, we also want to make sure as buyer agents, we ask questions to find out why the buyer needs to buy and by when they need to purchase. Guys, that's time frame and motivation, two things that are mission critical for us as the buyer agent to fundamentally understand about every buyer we work with. Okay, that needs to happen before criteria, before we talk about anything else. Motivation and time frame are the two big pieces that we must know and understand. Shannon, you're absolutely right. Why buy and by when? We want to educate the buyer and set clear expectations. Ash will take us through some best practice expectations to set with these buyers, guys. Expectations are everything. And then we want to have strategic conversations. That's why you're here today, to go through these conversation starters and topics that are ultimately going to help these buyers make decisions. Okay, Ashley, anything else that we didn't talk about here on what a buyer agent should do?
No, I think these guys really hit the nail on the head in the chat box with some of the extras that you and I hadn't even talked about when we were coming up with this presentation. So,
right.
Good work, guys.
And great buyer specialists set listing appointments too. Austin from Houston. We should hang out because
Austin,
we live.
That may be my favorite response
Yes.
yet.
Yes. We do set listing appointments as well. Okay, so Ashley, why don't you take us through kind of the high level of these four big conversation buckets that are really, really powerful for us to have with our buyers right now in a shifting market?
Yes. Okay. So this is something I get really, really passionate about, guys, because I am all about setting clear expectations. I truly believe that all disappointment comes from either not communicated or just unmet expectations. Mm-hmm. So as we're going through the key elements, right, the big buckets of what is it that we need to cover with every buyer that we are coming into conversation with, first and foremost is motivation. So I believe someone even dropped this in the chat just a second ago, but like moving is a big deal. So what is driving them to move? Is now really the right time? A great reminder is people don't move for logical reasons like 80% of the time. 80% of the time they're moving for very emotional reasons. So when we're tapping into somebody's motivation, we've got to know what it is that's happening in their world, what it is that they're feeling about what's happening in their world to really understand what's driving them to make the move, and is now really the right time, or is this something that they're preparing for either their near or far future, right? Depending on a personality type, some people start preparing at different points in what we would call the process. Right? If you're me, I'm planning like 5 years out when I'm moving. Other people, it's fly by the seat of their pants and they decide within 30 days that they're ready to make a move. So it's on us to develop that skill set for how we uncover motivation. And just so you guys are aware, we're going to go a lot deeper into these four buckets throughout the rest of the afternoon, right? So we're just kind of scratching the surface today. The next one that we're going to talk about is time frame. So really important piece for us as agents is by when, right? When do people actually need to move versus desire, when they would like to, kind of that dreamy side. And then number three, we are going to talk so much about expectations. Like I said, my most favorite part. We're going to talk about setting expectations around the home search process. We're going to talk about how we set expectations about the market conditions. Mm-hmm. We will talk about how we set expectations around financials, home inspections. The entire buyer consultation that you're doing should be rooted in what expectations are being set. So yes, we call it a consultation. Sometimes I wish we could just call it an expectations conversation, because that's really what it is. Mm-hmm. So we're going to get really deep into how we set expectations for the client but also how we dig out our clients' expectations of us to make sure that we're all having an enjoyable experience throughout the process. And the last thing that we're going to talk about is showings. We're going to dig into how many homes will you even show a client? What conversations are you having with your clients during these showings, at the end of every showing, that's really helping you all, again, set clear expectations and manage your time and the client's time really efficiently, but also help you guys improve your under contract ratios as well.
You know, Ashley, and one of the things I heard you say that I think stands out the most, right, is these all these things go together. Okay. I mean, I would be willing to argue that none of these 4 conversations isolate or operate in isolation. We have to have all 4 of these separate conversation buckets, not only at that initial consultation or strategy session, but also throughout the process with our buyer. And one other thing Ashley said that I love, guys, and write this down, is we need to be okay with the understanding that right now might not be the right time for every buyer to buy. And that's okay. Right? And when we're clear on our numbers and clear on our goals, we'll find the buyers that we need to hit our numbers still. Yet we may have to have a conversation with a buyer to say, you know what, Ashley, right now might not be the time for you to buy based on what I'm hearing you say. That's okay too. Okay. So let's go ahead and kind of dig deeper into motivation, because that's a really big one. And like Ashley just said, guys, moving's a big deal. What makes now the right time for a buyer to buy? And I love the difference between the logical versus emotional reasons. I think we can all agree that buyers often make a move when there's a big lifestyle change. Okay. Yet we also want to make sure that we're doing our job as the agent to get really, really clear on going deeper than the surface level of the motivation. Okay. So Ashley, if I'm your buyer and I say, hey, Ashley, yeah, I want to downsize. Okay, Ashley, without asking any further questions or going deeper in a conversation, might go, yep, Sarah wants to downsize. And then Ashley takes her version of downsizing and assumes that she and I are in alignment on what downsizing means.
So let's throw some things in the chat box while Sarah's continuing. I just want to hear your all interpretation of downsize. Like, first thought, don't think about it anymore. Just put it in the chat box. What comes to mind when someone says downsize?
Yeah, because it's all going to be very different. Ashley, wouldn't you agree with that? We might have some similar responses, but my version of downsizing could be very different than Ashley's, than Austin's, than Lana's, than Christian's, right? We all have different filters of what those words and what that might even mean. So guys, something we want you to take into consideration too, it says here on the screen, a buyer will always buy when they have a reason to buy. No matter the weather, no matter the time of year, no matter interest rates, no matter whatever the objections we think we might be getting or conditions that we think might cause a buyer to buy or not buy, a buyer will always buy when they have a reason to buy. Okay, and it's our job and our responsibility as the agent to find out what makes now the right time. So a few conversation starters, if you're getting into the process or getting into a relationship with a new buyer, exactly that phrase we've just been saying, gosh, Ashley, moving's a big deal. What makes now the right time for you to buy? Tell me more about that. That question mark probably shouldn't be there. Go ahead, Ashley.
We're good at this. We're good at interrupting each other if you guys can't tell.
We are.
Because it's something that I think you do so naturally, and yet I want to point out for everybody else, if you guys caught on to how many times you've heard Sarah say, moving is a big deal, the more you can integrate that into your dialogue with your clients, right? You're connecting with them at a deeper level. Every client wants to feel like they're your only one. The more you're emphasizing and validating that, yes, the process for some might be fun, for others, it could be very emotional and triggered by some negative things happening in life. And so the more that we can connect with, this is a big deal, right? You're connecting to the emotion for them of just how important they are. So keep going, just make sure you guys are right.
Great point. It kind of humanizes the process, right? Because it is a big deal. How many of you have moved in the last 3 years? It's a big deal, right? And once you do it a few times, you're like, man, I never want to do this ever again. So it can be fun, but it also is a big deal. So I appreciate, Ashley, that you said that, because it does kind of empathize with the buyer a little bit more about what they're going to experience soon. Guys, I realize tell me more about that isn't a question, but that's there something that I want to share about the phrase, tell me more about that. Okay. If you are in a conversation with a buyer, or really anybody for that matter, with your spouse, with your kids, when you get hit with something and you're like, oh my gosh, what do I say next? All you need to say is, you know what, Christy, tell me more about that. Because you're buying yourself time to get deeper in the conversation to figure out where you might want to go with the conversation next. Okay. But it also helps you peel a layer back. Okay. This is where these conversational questions come into play, and they don't have to all be used in order. This isn't a language pattern. These are just questions and conversation starters we want to have with buyers when we're starting to find out what makes now the right time for them to move. Because again, if Ashley just says, yep, I've got another baby on the way, I need a bigger house. If I just take that and run with it, she's like, nope, just the one. If I just take that and run with it as her agent without getting more clear on what that means for her, I'm already behind the 8 ball, right? I've lost. We're going to break rapport. It's going to take me more time to get her where she says she wants to go because I haven't asked enough questions. Okay. What about that is important? Right? That's a great question to ask. What about that's important to you or your family? Or what about that is important for now? You know, guys, you might find out that if a buyer's like, oh, I've got to have a house with a pool. Okay, what's important about that? Oh, well, my son is going to be an Olympic swimmer one day. I just know it. We need an Olympic sized pool with a straightaway so we can swim back and forth all day long. Guys, we're getting deeper and deeper and peeling back layers to really get on an emotional level with that buyer. It's not just a pool, it's a training ground for their son or daughter who might be in the Olympics one day. Okay, and it might sound silly, but when you ask enough questions, you're going to find out way more than you ever thought you would about what makes now the right time for a buyer. Okay, and how many of you have been to Bold? Just in your lifetime, how many of you have been to Bold? Most of the people on our screen here, which I love to see, right? Logic makes them think, and emotion makes them what? Yeah. Act. Okay. The emotional piece of this, even if you're not an emotional person, that's okay. We just ask questions to get really clear on what makes now the right time. And then ultimately, what will that do for you and your family? And if you're reading these going, gosh, Sarah, I would never ask a buyer these questions. Why not? What's holding you back? The buyer's not anticipating these questions, right, Ashley?
Right. And I think it's really important too that you internalize these in such a way that you really ask yourself, how would you ask the question? So if you aren't comfortable or you just don't feel in any way natural, or it feels forced or weird for you to say, what about that is important? Well, find another way to ask the same question, right? There are multiple ways to dig out information. I love, Becca, you put in the chat box, not asking someone why, right? When we ask why, it can kind of feel defensive and a little bit accusatory versus the fact that we're genuinely curious. And we want to stay curious for our clients, and substituting it with because, right? So that may be more of your natural speech pattern. Becca may not feel comfortable going, well, tell me more about that. The way she naturally talks may just be more like, because, and then she's digging more information out and letting them finish the sentence. The whole point here is that you guys find a way of what feels comfortable to you to achieve the objective. You don't always have to use the exact phrase that's provided to you in the samples we give or what we put up on screen. Can you get the same information out of a client? The more ways that you have of asking the same question, the more successful you will be as an agent in working with different personality types.
Yeah, great point, Ashley. I love that you shared that. And something else that just came to mind for me too, guys, if you're reading these questions and going, man, I missed the mark with the buyer. I asked these questions, maybe I didn't ask enough questions, and I feel like we're working towards a goal that maybe we aren't in alignment on. If you think about a buyer that you have right now who you're in that space with, where again, you feel like their audio is not matching the video. Okay, like a bad anime film, right? Where they're talking all these things. They say they want to buy a house, but they're not doing what buyers who need to buy a house are doing. it's totally appropriate to kind of have a regroup on motivation, right? So if you're at a roadblock with a buyer, consider picking up the phone and calling them and saying something like, hey, Ashley, let's take a step back. You've been on my mind today, and I really just want to hear from you. Remind me what made now the right time for you to buy a home. Ashley will give me her answer, which I probably already know, guys, but I want her to speak it back to me. Okay. And then if she still gives me the same answer that I got at that buyer consultation, I'm going to simply ask, have your plans changed? And that's a yes or no question on purpose, because as the agent, guys, if I'm not making progress with a buyer in the way that they say they want to, I've got to take a step up and say, has it changed? Yes or no. If their plans have changed, that's totally fine. But we're not going to keep doing what we've been doing if their plans have changed. Right, Ashley?
Yeah, and I'm going to let you guys in on a little secret to make that even easier, because
Pro
sometimes
tip.
it can feel awkward. Pro tips right here.
Pro tip.
It can feel awkward to initiate that conversation, right?
Yes.
It's not always comfortable, especially if it's if it's a buyer you're frustrated with, or maybe you just haven't connected with them in like a month because like things slowed and it got weird. And so to come back and being like, okay, so remind me why you're moving, or have things changed? Huge fan of the circle back script. Hey, it could be that it's a Monday. Hey, happy Monday. I haven't talked to you in a little while. I was spending the afternoon just circling back through some things, and I wanted to check in.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Where's your head at? I haven't heard from you. You could go back into, again, some of these things. Hey, the last time we talked, you were looking to move by. The last time we talked, you had mentioned wanting X. I just want to just circle back and make sure that we were still on the same page. This is still what you're after. I'm going to be spending some time today digging into some of this for you, right? It's okay to actually be human and acknowledge that there was maybe that little bit of lapse, or that things have gotten funky between you and a client. Because I assure you, if you're feeling it as the agent, they definitely feel it as the client. Pick a Monday. Pick a Friday. Hey, I just wanted to circle back before I got into the weekend and the craziness, and make sure that we touch base before the end of the week. It's a Monday. Hey, I'm just getting everything geared up for the week. You were on my mind. I want to make sure I'm doing everything I can for you. Just wanted to circle back. It's the first of a new year. Use the new year as a great excuse to circle back to all those buyers that you potentially had that maybe we haven't engaged with in a while or didn't go under contract. And then go right into the dialogue Sarah was talking about, right? Hey, just wanted to circle back. Last time we talked, insert a couple key notes about their motivation. Just wanted to make sure, is this still the case, or have things changed?
Great point. And yes, I mean, next week, even the rest of this week, right, guys? We're at that critical time in the year where the timing is setting us up to have these conversations. So I love that you shared that. So
and then it's not so awkward. So take advantage of
awkward.
The gift.
Yeah. The new year gives us a reason to call. So guys, in addition to the motivation, like we talked about when we kicked this call off, we have to understand the buyer's time frame. How many of you, show of real hands or virtual hands, have ever had a buyer say, oh gosh, Sarah, I'll buy when I find the right house? We probably all have been there. Okay. I see a lot of virtual hands coming up. I saw a lot of real hands come up. That's especially right now. Oh yeah, we'll buy when we find the right home. Oh, we're not in a rush. And so you think to yourself, how am I supposed to elicit some kind of time frame from this buyer who says they'll buy when they find the right home?
Ooh, or I get a lot of coaching clients who will say things like, well, I have all these people in my pipeline that's like, they're 10, they're ready as soon as we find the right home.
Yeah. So guys, there are conversations we can have with these buyers that can help us establish a time frame. Because even if the buyer says, yep, I'll buy when I find the right house, something still had them call you today and ask about buying a home. There's something deeper that we may have not connected with yet that's causing the buyer to think about buying, because moving and buying a house is a big deal. People don't often think about wanting to do this unless they have a reason to do it and a time frame in which they intend to do it. Okay. I'd be willing to bet that most of you on this call have talked to a lot of buyers in the last 2 weeks who have said, oh yeah, let's wait till the new year. Oh, I want to wait until January. Right? So we're going to get there in a minute, and expectations, and also some other like bonus conversations we're going to have. And actually, I'm looking at the clock. We've got to move faster, sister. So
yeah, we do. God, we weren't kidding when we said we can talk about this stuff.
I know we can. But again, guys, here's a few conversation starters you can jot down that could help you establish a time frame with your buyer. Because here's the secret sauce. The buyers who will buy have a reason to buy and have a timing in which they need to be somewhere or to buy. No matter if it's a primary home, if it's a second vacation home, if it's a piece of land, John, looking at you, people always have a reason to buy and a time frame in which they intend to buy. Okay. So simply put, gosh, Ashley, by when do you need to move? You're going to have some buyers who are going to say, I need to be closing on my house yesterday. Okay, great. Let's talk about how we're going to get you there. Okay. And the buyers who say, yep, I'll buy when I find the right home. Cool. No problem. In an ideal world, no strings attached. In an ideal world, by when would you want to be moving into your next home? That question right there can help us create a timeline. Because then we can say, okay, what made you think of that? They have a time frame, guys. They might just not want to commit that time frame to you or anybody else or to themselves, because buying the house is a big deal. Okay. We want to ask, how flexible is your timeline for moving? What's important, Ashley, about us asking a buyer how flexible their time frame is for moving?
Yeah, I hear a lot of agents don't ask this question. We stop at by when do you want to move? By when do you need to move? And we get that surface level answer that, again, it's that perfect case scenario. And yet a lot of people aren't thinking, well, if they don't find the right house by then, or, it take a really strategic and creative negotiation that the sellers on the house that they want to buy need in order for us to close. And there can be so many factors that come into play. We need to know if there's flexibility. Flexibility for one, you to know if they actually have alternate motives in mind, but flexibility for two, it allows you to get really creative with your negotiation strategies to get them in the right home.
I love that Christian said in the chat, if you could wave a magic wand, right? Because it gets buyers thinking in the possibility, not limitation. If you could wave a magic wand, by when would you be closing on your home? Not by when would you be putting a contract on it, by when would you be closing? We can work the time frame back from then. Okay. And Ashley, you kind of touched on this, right? Let's say we don't find the home you want to buy. Let's say your plans change. What's your backup plan? I love this question, and there's a reason why. When a buyer's backup plan is super, super detailed, if the buyer says, oh, Sarah, yep, I can live at my parents' basement. I've already got a bed down there. It's already hooked up with Wi-Fi. No problem. I don't have to pay any bills there. That's my backup plan. If their backup plan is that clear and concise, there's a chance that backup plan might actually be their plan A, not their plan B. But we want to listen for, gosh, Sarah, I have no backup plan. If I don't buy a house in the next 45 days, I'm going to be homeless. And my joke there, guys, is, well, you can't come live with me. So let's go find you a house. Okay. I don't know how many houses. I mean, it's hundreds and hundreds of homes.
Hey, good afternoon, man. It's Eddie with the
Wolf
Real Estate Team.
Okay, Eddie, thank you so much. You're making some lead gen calls. I love that. So, but in the hundreds of homes that we've sold, Ashley, that you've sold, I have yet to have a buyer be homeless. Okay. But that question, what's your backup plan, is a very powerful question, because they either have one or they don't. And that's a great question to circle back on. If you notice again that the buyer's audio is not matching the video. If you're in progress with the buyer and they're not moving forward, we can say, gosh, Christy, what's your backup plan? You told me when we first met that X, Y, and Z had to happen by X, Y, and Z timeframe. What's your backup plan? Because they either have one or they don't.
If you're struggling to get them to be specific about their timeline. So when you're saying things like, by when do you need to move? And they're giving you these vague answers and kind of maybe a time frame or a range, or you're saying like, well, how flexible are you? And they're like, well, we can be pretty flexible and this and that. And you hear the people go, well, I'm not sure if we want to sell first or not. And right. You hear these people who are just kind of, they're fluid. When you dig into well, what if we don't find the house? Not only are you ding, 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 setting an expectation that we are not magicians. Just because they've given us their criteria and they've told us they want to move does not mean we can magically make homes appear within their perfect time frame.
We can't.
So by saying, let's say we don't find it, you have now just embedded an expectation that it's actually possible that we're not going to find what they're looking for within the timeline that they want it in. And then we go, so what's your backup plan? And it will cause them to get a lot more specific if they've been very vague with those first two questions. So again, these are not meant to be asked like in isolation. These are all kind of points to help you go, notice we give you 3 every time, to help you go 3 deep with your clients and keep digging and digging and digging for the information that you need for you to be successful.
So we've got motivation, we've got time frame. Now Ashley, drop some knowledge on us in 5 minutes or less, since I'm watching the clock. I don't know if Graham is still here, but I think he is. He's keeping us on time.
Okay.
Expectations are everything.
Yeah. So as I said at the beginning of this, guys, expectations should be the root of your buyer consultation. And I am going to just go out on a limb and be willing to bet that a lot of you in this screen right now either aren't doing buyer consults or haven't had to do a buyer consult in the last 18 to 24 months. Frankly, the way the market's been, we saw a lot of people get away from it. And so let this be a good refresher of, oh yeah, what should I be covering in a consult? Well, guys, you can do a consult in an office. You can do a consult on that first showing. The whole thing is you get one opportunity and one opportunity only. We talk about first impressions matter, right? It's that first appointment with your client or potential client that you get to set expectations for the entire rest of the process. If we don't nail that first impression, it's on you if you end up 6 weeks down the road and you're miserable with the experience that you're having with the client. If they're running you all over the place, if they're crazy dramatic, if they're calling you at all hours with 5,000 questions, if they ignore you and just don't respond to you until like 3 days later on your communication, right? All the things that you can tell Sarah and I hear from our clients as to what stresses them out about their buyers. Well, guys, I'm going to always go back to it's on you and the expectations you set from day one, if that's the experience. So first and foremost, we're going to set expectations around showings, right? We're going to talk to them right out the gate. Hey, most of the people that work with me, they're buying one of the first 3 houses we see. I usually follow that up with, it's rare that we ever see more than 5 homes. You're just setting the expectation, and let's be clear, no, everyone kind of wants to be like everyone else. They don't want to be like the weird one that's like, oh, well, I had like 20 on my list, right? So when you just come out and say, it's rare that we ever see more than 5 houses, most of my clients end up buying within the first 3. Not only are you educating them on showings, but you're embedding an expectation. We're also going to set expectations with them around finances. This is one that I think a lot of agents struggle with because we tend to go, well, have you been pre-approved? And if they say no, we just go, okay, well, you need to talk to a lender first or I can't show you any houses. Okay, well, if that's what you said to me, I'm gonna be like, bye. I'm gonna go find another agent, right? Instead, we want to talk about financials again from the foundation or the root of setting expectations. Coming back to, well, what's important about us having that pre-approval, right? Number one, we just want to make sure that we're shopping with homes within your budget. And I don't just mean the budget that the bank says you can afford, the one that you actually feel comfortable with the monthly payment around. And then I use that as the opportunity to explain to people that just because the bank says you could do a purchase price of X doesn't actually mean that that's in alignment with the lifestyle you guys live and the kind of money that you were planning on putting into your house every single month versus being able to go do other fun stuff. We also talk about how different loan products, right? You can explain to them that different loan products mean the house has to meet certain criteria. We would never want to put them in a home or show them a home that their loan product couldn't actually meet, right? Or that they couldn't buy with that loan. Different loan products have different down payment requirements, right? So we want to make sure from day one, my saying and pro tip here is, I don't like surprises when it comes to money. right? As your realtor, that is one area that I will not allow surprises to show up throughout this process, is when it comes to your money. And most people are kind of like, oh, thank you. Right? No one wants that surprise few $1,000 difference. So let's have the expectation with them of, hey, most sellers don't even allow you in a house anymore without a pre-approval. I can't guarantee that I'll be able to continue to schedule showings without this. Set the expectation that it's necessary. And notice I did that in a way, every little tidbit that I was saying there was all about you're educating them. You're not bossing them around and telling them they have to go do something, or this is just the process, or this is how it goes, right? We're educating them on the significance and the importance so that they're actually connected to the value. Housing market. This is a big one because of how quickly the market has been shifting. Great question to ask on the screen. What have you heard about the housing market? And let them talk, because they are going to tell you what their current beliefs are about the experience that they're expecting to have moving forward. They could be coming in expecting to pay over ask price. They could be expecting to get a really good deal because the market's crashing. They could be, you don't know. You don't know if they're paying attention to the family member that bought 6 months ago and had to come up with $50,000 cash to buy over ask price and win in 20 multiple offers, or if they're listening to the one media outlet who's talking about the looming housing crash and how it's all just going to burst and, right, buyers are finally getting great deals. We don't know what story they're listening to. So we need to ask, what have you heard? What are you hearing that's going on in the housing market? And give them a chance to tell you what they're expecting. And then once they do that, right, they've now opened the door for you to give them factual information and reset whatever expectations need to be set about inventory, about the work that may be involved with finding them a home. You may be like, hey, this could actually be pretty quick and easy. Or you may say, this could take some time, right? We want to set clear expectations. We'll talk a little bit about showings on the next one a little bit further, but home inspections. This is another really big one. I think a lot of times, at least in my experience, agents wait way too long to talk about home inspections, AKA we wait until we're writing an offer, going under contract, or it's time to schedule before we actually are having a really in-depth conversation with the client about what inspections are, how it fits into the process, and what to expect during that time frame. Hence why that's one of the #1 reasons so many deals fall apart. I can assure you, I have tracked this over years of coaching. The agents that have learned and have implemented setting proper home inspection expectations in their consults have a significantly lower fallout rate on their contracts due to home inspections. So I kind of want to pose this as a question for you guys to really think through in your head. What expectations do you set with your client about inspections? The language that you use here matters, and it matters so much, because if they hear you saying things like, oh, don't worry about it, right? Like, they'll look at things like that during the home inspection, or, oh, we'll be able to just ask for those kind of things during the home inspection, or don't worry, we'll have home inspections. Buyers start to get in their head that becomes like their be all end all safety net when they're at their highest point of emotion. They're spending a ton of money. They start to get that little bit of stress and anxiety because holy crap, they're now on a timeline and they're actually moving. And then we're going to hit them with everything that's wrong with the house. Mm-hmm. And because of the language patterns we use, we often set them up to either A, want to be a little bit unrealistic during the process, or B, just use it as their way to completely back out. So be very clear with your buyers and the expectations that we're setting here, right? The inspection process is a chance for us to dig in and see what defects there may be with the house. A lot of you, I am pretty sure your sales contracts mandate what kind of items a seller must fix and the kind of things that are just sort of up in the air. Are you setting the right expectation with your client that the seller is not obligated to fix everything that we ask for? Mm-hmm. This is a point of negotiation. Are you making sure your buyers understand that? Yeah. Because if we aren't, right, and are you setting the expectation that every house has its flaws? you as the educated agent get to help them here in things that we say, hey, this is something really common that we see. This is the approximate price point I think these types of things run, right? Do you have the resources to look at and educate them? But the words you use when we talk about home inspections matter so much. And we can dig into this more or get some scripts out to you guys to help around that if needed. But for the sake of time, we'll kind of keep rocking and rolling. The last one I want to make sure that we touch on in terms of setting solid expectations is communication preferences. So as agents, we tend to lean towards the way we want our clients to communicate with us. If you are me, text me. I screen every phone call. I tell people that. I actually don't answer my phone anymore unless you're my mother. And that's because my sister's currently in labor right now. Like, no joke, I don't answer my phone. Yeah, I know, I'm excited. But I don't answer my phone. And those that know me, like there's a couple people in this screen that know me, they know I do not answer the phone. Mm-hmm. So, right, if I'm working with a client, I tend to want them to adapt to my style of communication. And yet it is so critical that we ask a client, how do they prefer to be communicated with? Mm-hmm. Let them respond. But again, guys, when I talk about this as setting expectations, quick show of hands, how many of you have ever felt like your clients run you? Like you've ever just had the one that they railroad you?
Yep.
Yeah. It's because we actually give them a little too much room to set their expectations of what they expect of us. And then all of a sudden we think it's our job to just meet their expectations. They're like, oh, I want this kind of communication. And I would love if you could call me or this often or this and that. Instead of us saying, how would you prefer that we communicate? Let them answer and then follow it up with, this is my process. Mm-hmm. If you don't have a process, it's really hard to set that expectation. Mm-hmm. And yet, if you do, and it may sound something like this, typically what you can expect from me throughout the week, you will get email notifications anytime new listings hit the market that are going to meet your criteria, right? If I see one that I think is really, really hitting the nail on the head for your criteria, I will personally reach out to you with either a call or a text to make sure that you saw it. Mm-hmm. If you aren't hearing from me, definitely check those notifications. Let me know if something catches your eye, but I'm really only going to be looking at the ones that I think match every box. If something changes and you do see something else that catches your eye, let me know. Otherwise, that's what you'll hear. You can also expect, right? So then I say on Thursday or Friday afternoons, I'm going to get a list out to you of any upcoming open houses that I've seen that are noted for that weekend for homes that you may want to see. That way we can schedule a private showing prior to an open house. And the last thing you want your buyers doing is to be the agent that you're just sending them to open houses, or that you give another agent the opportunity to snatch up your client. Because newsflash, right. I was that agent. Yeah. You could send any buyer you wanted through my open house, guarantee they're my client within 72 hours. So instead, I'm going to send you a list of open houses. Let's schedule private showings on any of them that you may want to see before the actual open house takes place, right? What else can they expect from you through especially the showing process? But then this is a good one to also go back through. How would you like for me to communicate once we're under contract? Mm-hmm. My process is that you typically will get an update from me once a week. I'll call you every week, whether there's an update or not, but just to let you know where things stand. I also set the expectation that, frankly, when we're under contract, it's kind of like a hurry up and wait game. There's really not a lot happening in terms of the client. I just say, be prepared to get your lender whatever paperwork they ask for. Otherwise, just know we're taking care of everything behind the scenes. I'll call you once a week to update you. If you're hearing from me more than that, it's typically because we've hit a hiccup and I might need a little something else. That's it. And then they're like, okay, cool. And they're not frantically texting you every 2 to 3 days. And yes, I've seen about 1 billion responses in here. We will definitely get, we'll put together, I have some script packages put together that are all built around these different segments and that all talk about setting expectations. Don't worry about dropping your email in the chat box, guys. We have a roster of everyone that was in this call. So Sarah and I will make sure that we get that, and we will get those out to you all by the end of the week.
Yes. And Ashley, real quick, Susan asked a question, which I think is worth answering now. And then we're going to kind of breeze through the next few slides to make sure we have time for Q&A. When communicating with a husband and a wife, and I think this is a really critical expectation to also set in the consult, guys, we want to make sure that if there are two or three or multiple parties who are influencing the purchase, husband, wife, husband, spouse, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it is, right? If there are going to be two names on a contract, we need to make sure we're having the same conversations with the people who will be buying that home. So this is not a, oh, just talk to my wife, she makes all the decisions kind of thing. It's a, we're going to have a group text maybe, but when we have a conversation or need to have one about something urgent, we're going to schedule a call. And it's going to be a call where we're all available so we can make sure that we're delivering the information the same way across all parties. Okay. And I think that's also okay to talk about in the strategy session or buyer consultation is when it comes to confirming a showing, sure, I'll shoot you a text. When we're going to have a conversation about making an offer and discussing terms, we're going to hop on a call. Simple as that. Okay. So let's real quick go through some expectations at showings. Again, you touched already, Ashley, on setting expectations around the number of homes that you'll show, but this is more about the conversations to have when we're actually client facing at the showing. Because I think we'd agree that's really an influential part of the process where we have the opportunity to really be strategic in the questions we ask to get the buyer to make a decision.
Yeah, guys, I will say take a screenshot of this, right? The questions on here are perfection. And so if you've ever caught yourself in a home and you just have like this awkward silence because you don't want to be the agent that's like, so here we have the kitchen. It's like, well, duh, we can all see the kitchen, right? And instead we're going, well, what are we supposed to talk about during a showing? We ask these key questions. They get in the door jokingly. I give them a couple minutes to walk through maybe your entry, like the main entry, maybe venture into the kitchen, and then jokingly can be like, so do you want to buy the house? They will know within the first couple of minutes if it's a yes or no, right? And if you can say it in a laughing way, they may be like, yeah, oh my gosh, we love this. Or they're going to be like, I don't know. We need to see the rest of this. Great, that's what we're here for, is to go see it. We wait a little later. Okay, scale of 1 to 5, like, you know, being you would never buy this house, and 5 being you can't live without it. Pick a number. And give them the pressure to not think about it too much. Just pick the number. And what makes it that number? What would you change to make it a 4 or to make it a 5? Mm-hmm. This will tell you exactly the key things that they're looking for, because they may have told you that this specific, I want an all-white kitchen, was really important. And then the second you say, well, what would you change to make it this? And they're like, man, we would need a much more open floor plan. Well, maybe they didn't know they wanted an open floor plan until they stepped foot in something and got to experience it. So asking the what would you change question is critical. And then if you feel like you've shown them a couple of houses and they're not loving it, and when you say, so do you want to buy this house? And we say it in a joking way, you never want them to feel pressured, like we are pushing them to buy every home that they're stepping foot in, right? We just kind of say, so if you want to buy this house and you feel that they've seen a couple and they're not looking for, okay, what are you still looking for that we have not seen yet? I will tell you the most common response that I hear when I ask that question is a feeling. It's not actually anything logistical that we're looking to check off our boxes in the search criteria, right? Or that we can see in the pictures. They're like, I just feel like we'll just know. Have you ever heard the buyer say, we'll just know? It's just not giving me that feeling, and they can't articulate it. If you're hearing that objection from a client during a showing, we did not go deep enough on their motivation, and chances are we didn't ask enough of the tell me more about that, or what's important about that question. Mm-hmm. Because when you start digging into what the checkbox, like the square footage, having a pool, those types of things actually do for the client, now you're walking into a showing and you're like, I can just see Sally out there in the pool swimming her lap, And man, like I picked this one out for you guys to see because you were talking about like wanting some space and this square footage. And look at this, like you guys can actually have like a separate living room for the kids to watch their cartoons. And like you and your husband can actually spend some quality time together watching your shows in this living room. And now notice you're actually talking about the house, repeating back to them the emotions and the experiences that they were wanting to evoke when they walked into a home.
Yeah.
So use the showings as the chance to not just be like, do you want to buy it? You know, rank this, that. Okay, what would you change? But really giving it the opportunity for you to, like, it's a challenge to yourself to say, how well did I really get to know this client? Could you walk them through the house and actually kind of almost narrate the movie, the emotions, the feelings of what their life's going to look like living in that home?
Well, again, Ashley, that's what causes them to think into possibility, right? And think into what could my life look like? It's a lifestyle, right? What could my life look like when we live in this home? And to add on to one thing that you said about the buyer that goes, oh yeah, it doesn't give me the feeling. Okay, buying a house is an emotional process. They should feel something when they're ready to make an offer on a home or buy a home. Yet I want to follow that up with a question of, okay, Ashley, like I can appreciate that. How will you know? What feeling are you waiting for? How will you know when we found the right one? When we ask that how will you know question, that elicits criteria from the buyer. It causes them to answer that question in really what they might be looking for or feeling, because then the next house we walk into, we can say, okay, did you feel X, Y, and Z? Is this the one, right? It helps us elicit that criteria. So again, I keep talking about, we're going to speed through some things. Bonus conversation, objection handling. Look at the screen. If you come to a call with me and say, my buyer's objecting to interest rates, guys, the interest rate is not the reason the buyer's buying a house right now. Okay. And if a buyer says, yes, Ashley, I want to wait till interest rates go down to buy a house. Awesome. Thank you so much. What will they have to come down to for you to feel comfortable buying a home right now? Because they probably don't know the answer to that question. There's something else.
People buy houses and cars based on monthly payment. That is the logic piece that comes into factor. It's not the rate. It's not what inventory or the economy is doing. They make the decision based on the monthly payment.
The interest rate is an excuse. They don't want to give you the real answer. And guys, I get it that there are some buyers out there. I don't want to generalize this because this is not every single buyer will give you this objection and respond the same way. But I'm hearing it so often right now where buyers are saying, yep, we want to wait until interest rates go down. Great, cool. What are you waiting for them to go down to? Because they probably don't know. Inventory, guys. If inventory is the problem, inventory is the solution. Okay. But when we're talking about these different types of conversations to work to overcome these objections, like an objection, we want to overcome that. We either have an objection or a condition. If the buyer can't buy until their divorce decree is finalized or whatever needs to happen in your state, that's a condition. We can't fast track that. But if a buyer is objecting to, I'll wait till interest rates come down, there's not enough inventory. Oh, all these homes have the same condition. Ashley mentioned this earlier. Okay, if they're looking in this area, are all these homes going to be similar? I know in my neighborhood, most of the houses were built in 1980. So if a buyer is looking for a house that is brand new, we're not looking in my neighborhood. Okay. And the buyer that wants to wait, what specifically are they waiting for? Ask them that question, because it's so easy for us to go, okay, cool. Yep. I'll call you after the first of the year. Have a good holiday. But what are they waiting for? What's causing them to want to wait? And again, it's all based on the rapport that you have with the client already. Don't come in hot and to someone and say, what are you waiting for? If you don't have that level of rapport already. But if Ashley was my buyer and she says, yep, I'm going to wait to buy. Hey, Ashley, I respect that. This is a big deal. It's a big decision. If you don't mind sharing with me though, what exactly are you waiting for? She might be waiting for something that we haven't even talked about yet, and that's okay, but I'm not going to know unless I ask. Okay. So just a few other conversations you can jot down. Again, I know I'm talking fast. This is recorded. You're all going to get a copy, but we want to make sure that we go through these two before we get to probably 5 minutes of Q&A. Ashley, talk about a few high-level market statistics that we need to know. And importantly, too, is how these statistics impact a buyer. That's the big piece. The buyer wants to know how these things impact them.
So y'all, I am a numbers junkie. The few of you on here that coach with me know that we track literally everything. And it is so, so important that you know your numbers and not just yours, but those of the market. I wanted to touch on a few things that you as a buyer agent should be looking at on a weekly basis, probably tracking them in a spreadsheet in an ideal world. Average days on market. Guys, this number changes every week. So every week, are we looking at the average days on market for all the homes that have closed in the last 30 days, in the last 30 days, in the last 30 days? And if you're not tracking it every week, chances are you're not going to spot the trend. Take 3 data points to make a trend, by the way. So if a number is trending in the same direction for 3 consecutive numbers, we call that a trend. So if days on market 1 week is at 10, then it went to 15, and now all of a sudden it's at 35. Guys, it's going to keep trending up. This allows you to have a more impactful expectation conversation with your buyer, or sometimes with sellers, about days on market. Because sometimes we'll go, well, this house has been on the market for like 30 days. Do you think we could get a really great deal? Hey, this house has been on the market a while. What's wrong with it? And then they want to try to lowball an offer. Yet if you're armed with this information, you can actually just set expectations that, frankly, that's just the nature of the market. It does not necessarily mean that the house is overpriced, that there's anything wrong with it, that really is just how long it's taking for houses to sell. List to sale ratio. This is a huge one. When you're looking at closings each week, be looking at list to sale ratio, right? Like, this market, especially because we're in a transition where, guys, list to sale ratio 6 to 12 months ago was like 150%. Okay, that may be an exaggeration, but we all know people were paying insane amounts over ask prices. List to sale was you'd list here and you'd sell clear up here. Now we've started to see things go, well, people are paying list price. Maybe they're getting a little under list price. Maybe we're clear down at like 90% list to sell. If you don't know these numbers, you can't set expectations with the buyer, which means they're going to make whatever offer they want to make based on what they're hearing and the story that they're believing, not based on the expectations that you set of this is what it will take to make a winning offer in today's market. Now, notice I didn't say you have to do this or that. I can just say, based on the statistics and based on what we're seeing, I'm just here to interpret the market. Based on what we're seeing, this is what it will take to write a winning offer.
And this was really critical, 18 months ago, 2 years, I mean, right when we were at the, like you said, list price to sell price ratio, buyers were doing crazy things all across the United States to win a home. When we went into that conversation saying, look, the market is what it is, here's what we're seeing buyers, offer that's causing them to win. That sets the expectation with a buyer of, do I want to compete or not? It's okay if they don't, but at least they know. So that way going into making an offer, no matter what the market is, they have an idea and really an expectation of what other terms are winning in the market right now. Okay. So Ashley, real quick, in 10 seconds, talk to us about one-on-one coaching.
Oh boy, this one's a fun one. So, as you guys both know, coming into this, Sarah and I are one-to-one coaches. We work with a ton of buyer agents, listing agents as well, but that's what we do. So several of you on here may already have a coach. That's probably why you ended up on this call. A lot of you may not. And yet, if that's part of your growth plan for 2023 and you are looking to kind of get ahead of the curve on these kind of conversations, improve certain conversion rates, heck, a lot of you, I'm sure, have got really big goals set coming into the year, and we're also in a shift, right? We kind of walk into the new year going, well, I want to grow my business, but the market's going backwards. How do I do that? I think the first words Gary Keller would tell you is to hire a coach. So there are several different options out there for one-to-one coaching if that's what you're looking for. Matt does a really phenomenal job of making sure you get paired with the right coach for you. We will talk to you guys. We'll ask a ton of questions coming in about what you're looking for, kind of the problems that you're looking to solve in your business, and we'll match you with the coach who actually specializes in those things. We have everything from breakthrough contracts, which is twice a month. It's kind of a get started, hence why we call it breakthrough, right? It's a lesser financial commitment, couple lesser time commitment in terms of the calls, and it's meant to help you really break through some of the just foundational ceilings and get your production to the next level. We've got mastery coaching, which is one-on-one every single week. with a coach, and then we go all the way up to senior mastery coaching, even higher level, bigger business conversation, and executive coaching. So there's a lot of different options out there based on where you guys are at in business. The point that I make about that is there really is a coach for everybody. It may not be me or Sarah. You may be in this call going, I can't, I'm having to talk to you crazies every single week. Well, that's okay. There's still probably a coach out there for you. So if you guys have any questions about one-to-one coaching and you want to have just an unfiltered conversation about it without having to like click a link and make a financial commitment on the MAPS website, Sarah and I are more than happy to have those conversations and even help in the process of getting you guys matched with the right coach. That's what we do. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We'll make sure you guys have our contact information at the end of all of this.
It's coming up here on 2 slides. So I know that guys, we're at the top of the hour. We've got maybe 30 more seconds to a minute. Julie, if you have a question, I see your virtual hand raised. Go ahead and drop it in the chat. I think we've been good about answering questions as they come up. And thank you to those of you who've been also answering questions posed by their members. What a fun culture we have here. So any questions you guys have, drop in the chat. Ashley and I will share our email addresses here in just a minute. And I'll go ahead and put this on the screen, guys. In addition to one-on-one coaching, MAPS also offers some great group products, okay? And I want to share with you a product called, it's a newer product called the Buyer Agent 30-60-90. This is a small group, 90-day commitment, training/coaching style, small group program. So if you're a new buyer agent, maybe less than a year in the business, or a buyer agent who's just looking to really ramp up your production in the first quarter of next year, we're launching our next 30-60-90 buyer agent program on January 9th. And what you need to do to find out if this is the right program for you is take your average commission that you would get on a buyer closing and multiply it by 10. Okay. And if you would be interested in finding out how you could earn that much money in 90 days, let me know and let's have a conversation. Okay. Because this program might be the right program for you. And we talked about email addresses. Screenshot this, reach out to us. Super easy email addresses. You got Ash Miller at KW, Coach Sarah Detmore at Gmail. We are here to make sure that we're resources for you guys. We want all of you to be successful in business. So if there's value in this presentation today, let us know. We want to reach out to you and have a conversation about where we go from here, whether it's coaching, whether it's training, whatever you need, MAPS has it. So with all that to say, Ashley, wrap up, parting words from you.
Parting words is go sell some houses in 2023.
Let's go sell some houses.
Go take your unfair share. Hopefully some of these scripts can, like the conversations we have, the little pro tips we gave are going to be game changers for you to re-engage with your pipeline, maybe new or different conversations or ways to approach things with your clients when you're out on appointments or in open houses moving forward. The point of all this is we want you to put more people under contract. So yes, the way we know if this calls of value is when you all are coming back going, oh my gosh, I used that, or I said that one thing, and boom, game changer.
Game changer. Like Ashley said, let's go put some buyers under contract. Guys, the buyers who are shopping right now are the buyers who likely need to buy. And bonus, the sellers who are listed right now are the sellers that need to sell. So go be a matchmaker. Let us know how we can support you. Have a wonderful rest of your holiday week and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
See you guys in January. Bye.